In my opinion.
This morning it comes from Jolyon Maugham, KC, the head of the Good Law Project, says he's joining more than 140 lawyers in refusing to prosecute climate protesters. Morning.
Good morning.
So can you first of all just explain for me and for the listeners how the cab rank rule works and how it applies to what you do?
Yeah, so the cab rank rule says, think of a taxi rank. You're a cab driver. You got to take whoever is the front fare in the queue when you get to that place. So you can't say to somebody who just wants to go around the corner or has their dog, I'm not taking you because I don't like the look of you. And the rule exists to protect the administration of justice. It says fundamentally that if barristers can pick and choose their clients, they might be frightened of acting for people who are unattractive, and those people who are unattractive won't be able to get access to justice.
And so effectively you are saying that you are going to circumvent this cab rank rule in this specific case.
Well, I mean, let's be clearer even than that. We're saying that we will ignore the cab rank rule. We will break the cab rank rule. But the cab rank rule is really important. And there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter and in other media outlets about the cab rank rule. I'm not trying to jettison or besmirch the cab rank rule. We just say that there are things that are more important than the cab rank rule. And one of those things is preventing the destruction of the planet. I mean, we've read the IPCC report that came out last week. Pretty cataclysmic, what scientists are predicting. You know, my parents live in New Zealand, and they are absolutely devastated at what has happened in New Zealand with flooding there. Many of your listeners will be from Pakistan. A third of the country was underwater. People are dying now, and they are dying because we are bringing new fossil fuel projects on stream. And although the declaration is about not prosecuting climate change protesters in part, it's also about not working on new fossil fuel projects.
So, I mean, as you say, lots of people are concerned by this approach. So I'm just going to read you a couple of tweets that we've had. So one here that just said, the minute we're perceived to be picking and choosing between good and bad defendants, it all breaks down. And then another one says, if he can't defend laws, then he's in the wrong job. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, I've given a pretty fair and enthusiastic defence of the cab rank rule. I do think it's important, but other things are also important, and we don't live in a morally simple world where our actions never have negative consequences. What we have to do is weigh up the competing ethical demands on us. The notion that the system of justice that we have will fall into the sea if the cab rank rule is ignored, I just don't really think bears examination. So I think that the United Kingdom is the only country in the world that actually has a cab rank rule. I don't think it exists anywhere else. Are people really saying that without the cab rank rule, everyone else's system of justice is fatally flawed and only ours works? I don't really think that makes much sense. Even in the UK, solicitors aren't bound by the cab rank rule, and even barristers are entitled to turn down fares if those passengers won't pay what the barristers demand. So the cab rank rule really is an idea about the administration of justice, and it's an idea that I like and I've relied on myself in the past, but it also is contingent on the laws that the barristers are upholding being fair, and sometimes those laws are not. And we say that actually the laws that enable BP and Shell and others to make vast profits, largely untaxed, tens of billions of pounds, getting rich off consumers whilst destroying the planet, are laws that reflect how big oil has got its hands on and is manipulating our democracy. They don't actually reflect the will of the people.
The cab rank rule, as you've sort of alluded to, can be sort of dodged and got around anyway, and is quite often, as I understand it. So why did you feel the need to come out and make this statement rather than just avoiding the cases that you didn't want to take?
Well, because obviously lawyers are kind of the the midwives of the kind of global financial system before a new fossil fuel project is brought into the world. There needs to be lawyers around who help it happen. And if lawyers stop helping it happen, then new fossil fuel projects will become very, very difficult to bring on stream. And I want to say to other lawyers who work on this stuff, look, there is another way. You have an ethical choice, an important ethical choice. Many of us have kids who are really, really worried about climate change. Many of us have friends who are worried about bringing new sons and daughters into the world. I don't know whether the correspondent who was talking about paternity leave, I don't know whether he thought about whether or not it was right to bring more kids into a world that is really fraught because of climate change. We remember the hottest day on record last summer. We remember how terrifying that felt. We just can't go on like we are. And as I say, although I think the cab rank rule is important, it is not the be-all and end-all. There are things in the world that are more important than the cab rank rule. And for me, one of those things is ending new fossil fuel projects.
I'm going to just read another tweet here. It says, would Jolyon and the other 100 or so stand by their principles should a loved one of theirs die or suffer life-changing injuries because of people glued to the road, meaning an ambulance can't pass?
Yeah, I mean, these hypothetical propositions are put to us time and time again. And of course, there is no protest that doesn't cause disruption. Let's keep it in perspective, though. The protesters that the signatories to this declaration are saying they will not prosecute are peaceful protesters. Right. They're not violent protesters. But yes, let me just take that point head on. There is a hypothetical possibility that protesters disrupt the flow of ambulances, but there is a real actuality happening today of people dying, lots of people dying because of climate change, and things are only going to get worse. Billions of people, say the IPCC, are going to be displaced by climate change. So you can balance up that theoretical possibility. I don't say it's not a theoretical possibility. It could happen, but you have to balance that against the really urgent need to prevent new fossil fuel projects from coming on stream in a way that is going to have absolutely cataclysmic effects, not hypothetical, but real, for billions of people.
Just before we go, we contacted the Attorney General's office and they sent us a statement. I'll just read to you, or some of it. Say, everybody's entitled to a fair trial. So this is a disappointing decision by lawyers who are widely expected to put aside personal views in the interest of justice. It was sort of echoed by what James got in touch and said. What Jolyon is telling you is that he doesn't believe in a system of law maintained by democracy. His own opinion is more important than the law. What do you make of that?
Well, let's not personalize this. There are 140 lawyers, and we've had lots and lots of support. And fundamentally, the point that's being made by the AG, that it's lawyers' jobs to apply the law, is generally speaking true, but there have been exceptional moments throughout history. So until the late 80s, it was impossible in the United Kingdom to rape your wife. Is that a law that is right? Is that a law that lawyers should support? We can think back further. We can think back to a time in which slavery was lawful. I've got a book behind me on the bookshelf called Being Once Property Myself. So although the laws are generally right, there are moments in history where those laws feel so out of touch with morality, with ethics, that the laws are wrong. They don't reflect the democratic will of the people. They reflect the influence of money on politics. And I think that's the world that we're in now. And I'm very, very anxious, and I know that the other signatories to this declaration are as well, that we do the right thing, not the easy thing. We're going to be punished by our regulator for this or that, I have no doubt. We're not doing this for money. Our only motivation is to express what feels to us a profoundly important ethical obligation on us as people, not to support activity that is definitely leading to the destruction of the planet and the displacement of billions of people.
Good chat this morning. Thanks very much, John. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on.
That's Jolyon Maugham, KC, head of the Good Law Project. Just to summarise, he is joining, it's more than 140 lawyers in saying he will refuse to prosecute peaceful climate protesters. We had, when Rachel tweeted about this last night, a lot of people had a problem with what Jolyon was suggesting. But actually, on the text this morning, I think Jolyon, as you might expect from a lawyer, must have made quite a good case, because quite a few people getting in touch saying that they agree with what he's saying. So Julia says in Birmingham, she says, totally behind this lawyer. The climate crisis we're in and where we're predicted to go in the future is much too important to ignore. It's been getting worse and worse. And what is the government actually doing about it? Very little. Totally agree with this move from the lawyer. And then one here, morning team, hurrah for your caller. We need more brave people in society to back up those brave enough to protest against climate change. It's real. Laws won't matter too much when the planet is on its last legs.
A couple of others, though. This one here. Another lefty lawyer, says this person, who thinks they represent the will of the people as opposed to the elected MPs voted for by the people to reflect their will. And Fran just says he's absolutely right. Unless we all stand together in our respective professions, the planet is doomed.